Hi, good night to everyone. Welcome to Conversation with Rickford Burke. Of course, this is Rickford here in New York. Share the link, everybody. Get into your Guyanese group and share the link. We look at apartheid governance in Guyana. I notice a lot of commentators are rushing out now to defend the PPP because the world is watching now. The world is beginning to understand what is happening in Guyana. And so the PPP is coordinating their supporters to come out and defend them. And so I want to tonight lay bare to the Guyanese people, to my audience, the practice and policy in Guyana of apartheid. The PPP government is an apartheid regime. Don't let anybody tell you anything else. It's an apartheid regime. Its policies and practices are abhorrent. Abhorrent, inherently racist. Don't let anybody tell you anything differently. So, share the link, everybody, and I'll be back in 60 seconds. Welcome to the conversation with Rick Burke. Keep sharing the link. We have a technical issue we're trying to resolve. We'll be back shortly. Keep sharing the link. All right. Good night again, everybody. Welcome to Conversation with Rick Burke. Text me, let me know where you're watching from. Those of you in New York and North America, good night or good evening. Those of you on the West Coast, it's evening, early night there. In Guyana, good night. In the Caribbean, good night. In Europe, Africa, and Asia, good morning. I want to examine with some amount of meticulousness the practices and policies of the PPP and give you the rationale for why the PPP is an apartheid government. Everybody in Guyana knows that the PPP is an apartheid government, but the PPP, the international community is beginning to pay close attention to what is going on in Guyana. And so the PPP is on this mission. Suddenly, they're taking pictures of black people. Oh, we love black people. We want black candidates. The world is watching. And so they're now putting out people to argue what apartheid is and compare their racism and their discrimination and say, hey, we not that bad. We discriminate against black people, but that is political. It's not race. So we are apart, but we're not the type. Because yes, we discriminate because it is in our nature to discriminate. It is our inalienable right, the PPP thinks, to discriminate against black people. But we're not that bad like P.W. Boughton and his government. We're not that bad. So they're putting out people to say, hey, if you really look at the definition of apartheid, we're not apartheid. And so today, keep sharing the link, everybody. Today, my friend, Mr. December, Neville December, attorney at law, wrote a letter in the Starbuck News, and I can only see it as on behalf of the PPP. On behalf of the PPP. Going through pains as though it was an extraction of a tooth to explain that the PPP is not an apartheid government. And he's not the only one. They have consistently been writing these essays and sending out these missives about why the PPP is not an apartheid government. Now, if you're African Guyanese, true to conscience, you know that the PPP is an apartheid government, right? Black people feel it. Black people see it. If you're not black and you support the PPP, see no evil, hear no evil. Apartheid, I don't even know what is that. Doesn't exist in Guyana. The PPP supporters are not willing to rein the PPP in, rein Barry Jagdeo in. Barry Jagdeo is the grand wizard of PPP racism. He's the grand wizard of PPP racism. If Guyana were the KKK, Barrett would be wearing the gold-plated white hood. He is the grand wizard of PPP apartheid governance. And so all of a sudden, they're on this campaign to disprove critics that they're an apartheid government. Mind you, they don't want to disprove it by reversing their apartheid policies and practices and ending their apartheid practices. No, that's not what they're doing. Their efforts are all cosmetic. Cosmetic, disingenuous. They're like, I am a born racist and I will die a racist, but I will color it around the edges so that it doesn't look that bad. I'm seeing I still have a technical issue here. You guys, can you text me and let me know if you're seeing me? Let me see. Text me, let me know if you're seeing me and hearing me. Text me, let me know if you're seeing me and hearing me. I'm getting a feedback here from my masterboard that I have an issue with the camera. Some of you might not be seeing me. You are. Okay, I'm getting feedback that you guys are hearing me and seeing me. I'm not sure why this is saying this. So the PP is not interested in genuinely ending their discriminatory policies and practices. Keep sharing the link, everybody. Keep sharing the link. We got to spread the gospel. They're not interested in doing that. They are only interested in cosmetic. It's just like the one Guyana. People are complaining about their discrimination. They're like, oh no, they caught us. Oh boy, they caught us. What are we going to do? All right, we can start a propaganda. We believe in one Guyana. Hey, but no black people must get contracts. Yes, we believe in one Guyana, but no black community must have their infrastructure rehabilitated. That is only for us East Indians who support the PPP. This country belongs to us. This is our plantation. Keep sharing the link. That's them. They're not going to say, okay, well, let us give black contractors at least 30% of the contracts that they qualified for. No, 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 no. We can just go there and say, yeah, black people get contracts too. And Burke is a liar. It is the Burke is the racist. We are not the racists. Burke is the racist, and Norton is the racist, and the APNU and the AFC, they're all racist. All black people are racist who complain against us. We are good citizens. Don't give nobody no contract. Don't give no black people contract. That's our East Indian money. They whisper from the side of their mouths. They don't mean to change anything. So my friend, Mr. December, wrote this essay in the Starbuck News today. Long, 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 long. I'm 6'5". They said longer than me. Explaining that the PPP is not an apartheid government. Keep sharing the link, everybody. And his rationale was nothing the PPP does meets the legal criteria for apartheid. Got you. That's not apartheid. PPP is not an apartheid government because nothing that they have done meets that narrowly defined definition on the International Convention of apartheid governance, which is a crime against humanity. But in all of their attempt to gaslight people, trick people, deceive people into believing that they're not an apartheid government, the evidence is there, staring you in your face. Staring you in the face. It is inevitable. They have to confront it. And tonight we will do that. Tonight we will confront the truth about PPP governance. These lights are hot. Could you just pull this back? Thanks. So I will publish my response. I will publish my response. Keep sharing the link, everybody. Keep sharing the link. I will publish my response to Mr. December. Because apartheid governance does not only constitute the jargon meeting the letter of the jargon that is adumbrated in international law. Apartheid governance is not only mandated by law. So his argument is that, you know, in order to be an apartheid government, you have to have laws that says any black person that enters into a bathroom shall be punished by 10 years in jail. Or any black person that wins a contract shall go to jail for 5 years. That's his argument. It has to be codified in law as a violation for it to be apartheid. But let me dare say, people, apartheid governance is a system. It's a system of segregation and discrimination. It's a system. It doesn't only constitute laws that enforce segregationism and discrimination. It is a system of prejudice and discrimination that shuts out people from society, shuts people out from participating in the polity, shuts people out from economic opportunity, shuts people out from benefiting from the wealth and resources and natural patrimony of a country. Are these things present in Guyana? You think about it. Now, before I outline for you the racist policies and practices of the PPP government that constitute apartheid governance, I want to say this. We, and I know I speak on behalf of a majority of blacks in Guyana, don't tell us how to think. Don't tell us how to express our experiences with PPP racism. We are a free people. We're educated. We have rights and liberties. We are not in bondage on a PPP plantation. The PPP is not the new white people who enslave blacks. The PPP is not the new plantocracy. The plutocrats that surround the PPP can't control our minds and our thinking. So don't tell us how to express our feeling. Don't redefine terms for us so as to argue that we have not experienced racism and apartheid governance. We're too intelligent for that. Even the slaves were intelligent. And they were deprived of education. Stop telling us how to think. Listen to us. Don't tell us what is apartheid. Listen to what we're saying our conditions are. That's what we want you to do. Don't write us and tell us how we must feel and how we must express ourselves. Stop it. It is contemptuous. And before I continue, let me say this. According to the United Nations International Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination, racial discrimination is described as follows. Any distinction, exclusion, restriction, or preference based on race, color, descent, or national or ethnic origin, which has the purpose or effect of nullifying or impairing the recognition, enjoyment, or exercise on an equal footing of human rights and fundamental freedoms in the political, economic, social, cultural, or any other field of public life. That's what the United Nations has described or defined as racial discrimination. I ask two questions. Doesn't this condition or these conditions defined by the United Nations as racial discrimination exist in Guyana? Exclusion, restriction, preference in favor of race, color, descent, national or ethnic origin? I ask two questions. Given the fact that these conditions exist under the PPP, why doesn't people like Neville December and other apologists for the PPP ask the PPP to stop being racist and stop the racial discrimination? That's one. Two, the apologists for the PPP, keep sharing the link, everybody. The apologists for the PPP are not talking to the PPP. Now, Barry Jagdeo and others in the PPP call us racist because we are exposing their racism. They're saying we're practicing racial discrimination. Right? That's their argument. We're racist by sitting here and delineating their racist actions and policies, their racism. They said that that's racist. How dare you? We're supreme. We're superior to you black people. Don't describe our prejudices as racism. You guys are racist for doing that. No, nothing that we do excludes, restricts, express preference based on race, color, descent, national or ethnic origin, which has the purpose or effect of nullifying, impairing the recognition, enjoyment, or exercise on an equal footing of human rights, fundamental freedoms in the political, economic, social, and cultural and other fields of public life. We do not do that to PPP East Indian supporters. So how are we racist? So why is it Neville December and others who are defending the PPP write an essay telling the PPP that their description of us as racist doesn't qualify under the United Nations Convention for the elimination of racial discrimination, which defines what racism and racial discrimination is? Why write us to tell us that our description of our experience of PPP racism and apartheid governance doesn't meet the threshold, the standards established under international law? You see what I'm saying? They espouse Black people. They believe this is still slavery. Keep sharing the link, everybody. Keep sharing the link. So those are my two questions. But I want to go further. None of these people are willing to tell the PPP, listen, you have a problem in Guyana. The majority of the Black population is saying you are racist, you discriminate against them. Solve it. One Guyana, remember that? Why don't you effect policies that reflect that? Why don't you undertake a series of dialogue with the Black leaders who are complaining? I meet with Rickford. I know they hate me, but they have to deal with me and my voice and my advocacy. But how about meeting with the Black trade unionists and the Black politicians? No, the PPP says no. How dare you? You guys are not citizens. We prefer to go deal with the syndicatos from Venezuela who are criminals than deal with you Black people. That's their attitude. How dare you Black leaders want to talk to us superior East Indians from the PPP? That's their attitude. They would never sit down and talk to the Black leaders of an NDC or a region or a municipality. No, 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 no. We were elected to govern East Indians only, and that's what we shall do. That's their attitude. That's the PPP's attitude. The president says, and Barajagdeo, we will not meet with any Black leaders, even though the Constitution mandates it. Meaning the elected ones, the ones elected. Constitution mandates consultation. PP is not doing that. They're selecting what aspects of the Constitution they will uphold. The one that says consult with Black leaders, no, 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 we don't have to consult with no Black people. They're not legitimate citizens. They ought to be slaves and stay on the plantation. And so we will now make Guyana our plantation so that we can make them slaves. That's the PPP. Keep sharing the link, everybody. So they're not telling the PPP to solve the issues that the Black people, Black citizens are complaining about. They're not doing that. There's a coalition course. The PPP is determined to be racist. They are determined to show Black people that they could rule us and govern us. And Black citizens are determined to defeat their racism as an inalienable right, as they should. So there's a collision course coming down the line. And the PPP not backing down, and we're not going to back down either. Because it is our country too. Nobody died and bequeathed Guyana to the PPP and their cabal of racists. Nobody died and bequeathed Guyana to the PPP. As a matter of fact, the ancestors of PPP supporters came and met Black people in Guyana and the Amerindians. So they're not going to be able to run us out. And probably some of them must be sitting there with contempt. Oh, how dare Rickford Burke speak like that about us superior beings? Yes, talking just about y'all. Because y'all are racist. And you practice apartheid governance. So let us look at the PPP policies. That even though no law exists to enforce it, it happens. It happens. Now, let me give you an analogy. Under the laws, murder is prohibited. You can't murder people, you can't kill people. The penalty for that is death or life imprisonment under solitary confinement. But murders take place every day. And according to the United States Report on Human Rights for Guyana, the government, this PPP government and its agents commit murders, state-sponsored murders, extrajudicial killings. Is Neville December and the fellow PPP apologists going to say that murders don't take place because it is prohibited in law? Or an extrajudicial killing does not meet the threshold of murder because murder is defined differently in the law? Is that going to be the argument? Murders don't happen in Guyana because it's against the law. So it doesn't happen. Right? So having made that argument, let me give some examples of apartheid governance and practices, policies and practices. The People's Progressive Party is abusing the police process to pursue African Guyanese leaders. They're framing them, making up all sorts of charges just to arrest them and have them detained. That happened in apartheid South Africa. All opposition black talk show hosts have been arrested. All of them. You think about it. Every single black opposition talk show host in Guyana has been arrested by the police. Why? For either speaking out or protesting against the apartheid regime. That's part of the apartheid system, using the police to suppress your opposition and enforce your supremacy, your ethnic or racial supremacy. That's part of apartheid governance. The Guyana police force, under the direction of the government, is using cybercrime laws to kill dissent by the opposition and black people. That's apartheid policies. And then they're filing politically motivated charges. Terrorism for protesting against the government. Terrorism. Sedition. Heinous crimes that would make you isolated in the international community. And then you had the government firing only black officials from GCOM, firing only black former CEOs, firing over 5,000 black employees from the government. What you call that? Isn't that systemic? That's apartheid governance. And then, like they did in Soweto and some of the black tongues in South Africa, the government is refusing to give them funds to manage their communities. They're depriving Georgetown of funds. When under our laws, the central government disbursed funds that it received through taxes and other revenue back to the community, local communities. Because the law doesn't give those communities the power to collect the revenues for themselves. So let's look at Region 4. the most populated and business-oriented region in the country, where the majority of Black people live. The government is starving them for funds. And the majority, about 70% or 80% of revenue to the government comes from Region 4. But this year, the government gave Region 6, where all the East Indian supporters live, a larger budget than Region 4. Region 6 has about 80,000 people. Region 4 has about 300 to 400,000 people. What do you call that? The government is using all the oil revenues for their own, themselves, their friends, and their own supporters. They gave up COVID grants, cash grants, money. Pack up money in a suitcase and go house to house. Most of the money went to their East Indian supporters. Give out flood relief. 99.9% went to East Indians. Isn't that systemic? The Black farmers at Mahika had to protest on the road, almost block the street, before the Minister of Agriculture could have gone and promised them flood relief, because flood destroyed their farms. And up to now, all of them didn't get the relief yet. But some PPP supporters got up to $1 billion. What do you call that? The government is now trying to systematically seize lands and properties from Black people, acquired some since in the 1800s, some during the coalition government. They arbitrarily determined that, oh, if you got land from the APNU government, that's illegal. We're going to take it back. But East Indians, you are supreme, you're superior. We are not going to take back your lands. As a matter of fact, we're going to take lands from Black people and give them to you. Because Black people should be treated like slaves. They shouldn't own anything. What do you call that? And if you want to dispute that, we have plenty. That as soon as they came in, within the first week, they want to take away Seaborn's land. Carcare, Bradford land. Some other business people. The African Guyanese, overseas-based African Guyanese, who brought Gaisuko property. Government trying to take them away, carry them to court to take them away. What do you call that? The government went into Maka. Look what they did. Treat the Black people of Maka like dogs. Beat them. Drag them through the mud. Drag women and children through the mud. And old women, elderly women, through the mud. Broke up their appliances. Broke up their furniture. Broke up their homes. Killed their cattle. Killed their livestock. Buried it. And let me pause there. Mr. December explains this action by the government by saying the government has a right via the eminent domain doctrine to seize and acquire property, private property, for public development and public good. Okay, we acknowledge that eminent domain laws exist that give the power to the government, but the government has to pay them reasonably. That's number one, for their property. Number two, what part of eminent domain law gives the power of a government to go in and beat up people and drag them out of their house and break it down, and then break up their furnishings and kill their cattle and bury it? What part of eminent domain law gives the government that power? And I find it appalling that an attorney would argue this. And the government is making this argument, a vacuous argument, outside of any judicial sanction. You would think that if they want to pursue this theory, that okay, under the APNU government, after the no confidence motion, everything was illegal. And mind you, they took this argument to the court, and every court in Guyana rejected it. Every court in Guyana rejected that argument. But they're still arguing it. Oh, anything the government did after the no confidence motion was passed is illegal. Well, the Constitution says the government remains in place until a new president is sworn in. So up to the CCJ, that argument was rejected, but they're enforcing it by going after Black people's land. Black people's land. What is that? And then you have the Attorney General going to his East Indian supporters at Kingley and tell them, go and occupy and take over, take ownership of the lands owned by Kojo McPherson's descendants, including Lincoln Lewis. Because empty land belongs to the state. And there's no transport for the land. And they've been living on it. So through prescriptive laws, or prescriptive rights laws, they're entitled to it. Go and take it. And then he went on to tell them, use violence. By any means necessary to me means violence as well. Use violence and defend your land. If Black people in Guyana say that on the television, the government will send the police to arrest them for cybercrime. But there again, you go there again, East Indian supremacy. You know, we say anything and do anything, we're above the law. The law enforcement is only for Black people. That's apartheid. And then they're excluding Black citizens from business opportunities. And they're refusing to pass laws to level the playing field. Since we got oil and gas, oh gosh, we gone crazy. They want to kill everybody for oil and gas money. That's what's driving them. The money, the country's money. That's why Barjagna is going crazy. The country's money. That's all they see. Green, 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 green. Give me that money. Give me that money. Give me that money. That's what's driving the PPP. They ain't concerned about developing no country. They're not. 82% of contracts go to East Indians. And another 10% is a government contracts throughout the country, including the from the National Tender Board, including from the ministries, and including from the regions. We did a study of it. 82% plus 10% of the remaining 18%. 10% of that goes to East Indians from foreigners, foreign citizens who are East Indians, like Trinidadians and so on. So basically, 92% of the government contracts, hundreds of billions of dollars, go to East Indians. Some of the people getting the contracts are not even legitimate contractors, but they're getting contracts. What you call that? Shutting out the Black contractors and transferring the wealth of the country to East Indian supporters via procurement fraud. What do you call that? Let's go to local content. Examine the companies that have been approved for local content in Guyana, Indian companies. They're shutting Black folks out from local content. What do you call that? And speaking of Indian supremacy, the DPP discontinued every single case against members of the PPP. The DPP even discontinued, same thing, charges against Narvan Singh, who police officer Balaz alleged harassed her, spat on her, assaulted her while she was on guard duties at his father's residence, the former chancellor. The DPP is like, oh, Negro, you know, that's probably another inalienable right. We're going to discontinue that charge. And she did. There's another one that the attorney filed, Ms. Bullis' attorney filed. And we're waiting to see if she's going to dismiss that. What do you call that? A justice system that is only for black people? Yeah, no, we're East Indians. You can't charge us with a crime. We're PPP East Indians. Keep sharing the link. And then you have the capricious and disgraceful arrest of attorney Tamika Clark for doing her job, following the Constitution, by telling her client that he has a constitutional right to remain silent, being questioned by the police. Police arrested her. Do you think the police would arrest an East Indian female lawyer? No. Let's be real. No. Let's speak truth to power. No. They would not dare do that. They are sparse black people. What do you call that? Have you ever seen the Guyana police force arresting an Indian lawyer for telling their client, which they do every day, to exercise the right to remain silent? And then you have the murders, the police murders of young black men. Boston, Kevin Andrews, Quinton Bacchus, Peter Headley. And then we have the police covering up of the murders of the Henry boys and others. But what is even more egregious is the attempt by the police and the government to cover up these murders. Police issued 3 misleading statements in the Quinton Bacchus case, trying to cover up the murder. Same thing with Orrin Boston. Same thing with Kevin Andrews. Not one police officer has been disciplined. Not one. Not one. Recently, we had a case where, and they think we don't know, someone allegedly stole jewelry for the wife of a top government official. Police officers wrote me telling me they took down all the black police officers from the residence. And it turned out that it was an Indian police officer that allegedly stole the jewelry. But they profiled all the black police officers. What is that? Isn't that systemic? And then the government now, in the Henry Boy situation, the government turned back after the fact and have been fabricating criminal charges against the black protesters who were protesting for justice. In the case of the Henry boys, they charged the Henry family. Then they charged one of them with murder. They framed one of them with murder. Now at Golden Grove, they're going back and systematically look at cameras and charge all of the protesters. All of the protesters with terrorism. And you know what? We have the evidence. We have the so-called evidence. And shortly, right here on this show, I'm going to go through them and analyze them. And you will see that they have no evidence that these people were committing terrorism. But they're charging them because they want to stereotype them and give them criminal records. Why? Because they protest against the PPP and they're black. Simple. How dare you black people protest against us for justice? You know who we are? We are the supreme apartheid regime. How dare you protest against us? That's the PPP regime. If this is not apartheid, we have some more. Remember the young man that says he is Gaza? He is Gaza, right? As a matter of fact, I think I want to play that video. Let me play that video. Let me see if I can find that video. Because they're charging black people with terrorism, right? So let me see if I can find the video of the young man. And let's hear what he said. I'm sure many of you remember what that young man said. I know I have it. All right, my technical guys will help me to look for it in the meantime, but I'll come back to it. I wanted to, I don't want to repeat it. I want you guys to hear it for yourself. Because the government is claiming that these young black boys at Golden Grove you have it? These boys at Golden Grove committed terrorism. And they're arresting every black person that takes to social media and criticize them. They are, okay, we have the video. They are arresting for cyber crimes. But here is this young man. And he's East Indian. Let's hear what he said. There you go.
You look like a fucking thief. Yeah, black man that's like fucking jump houses. Yeah, fucking Matty black man shoot you like fucking next thing is police now against fucking police. There's the next thing. The fucking police them all look like a fucking thief. Yeah, black man that's like fucking jump houses. Yeah, fucking Matty
Not
black
sure if you guys are hearing that.
like Matty black man. You
I am
mother's
not
gonna
hearing
get
it. So let
fucking
me see if I'm
sense.
doing something wrong.
The fucking man down there in Ghana. Oh mother's gonna is the policeman. Yeah, gotta look for. Kill the police out. No fucking cool the people do ya not is ya old Matty black man shoot a Matty black
Are you
man.
guys hearing him?
From fucking racist
Can anybody
now,
text me to let me know if they're hearing what he's saying?
Mother's dotage bad black man. And I'm mother's gonna get sense. Like I can never fucking go school. I need to go fucking school.
Oh, you're hearing it. Good.
I'm mother's gonna dotage bad. I never see fucking black man so yet. Burning fucking road, burning up fucking people vehicle. But hey, black people and pies na your mother's country keep a party. And fucking make sure invite all your mother's country. All the black man in this country. Who can get your mother's country and show pies na your fucking food and get you dead out of your mother's country. After like I get no fucking sense black man. Me said I am known as fucking Gaza on TikTok. I kill all your mother's country out if I get the fucking chance to kill black man. I shoot all of your mother's country out.
All right. So you heard him there. He said police officers should be killed He said he would kill all the black people, shoot them and kill them, and poison them. He was not arrested. He was not arrested. Talk about East Indian supremacy. Laws are not for him. He's East Indian. We got to no, he's a PPP supporter. The laws are not for him. We police officers, we can't arrest him. He's supreme. We only arrest black people for this kind of speech. He's not been arrested. What do you call that? And I spoke, of course, of the government's refusal to meet with black elected officials. How dare you? We're not going to meet with black people. These are elected officials where the law says you're mandated to meet with the opposition. Government said, no, we're not meeting with them. And then we had a situation where the PP formed death squads that killed black people. 2 or 3 East Indians were killed by the death squads. Hundreds of black people, no investigation, nothing. Extrajudicial killing, nothing. Oh, we don't investigate that. They're black people, we don't, that the lives of blacks have no value. Remember, they're slaves on the PPP plantation. We are the new white plantocracy. We don't investigate those murders. They just throw them in a grave somewhere. They're criminals. They're criminals. We hereby declare them criminals, so there must be no justice. No due process. Nobody must be held accountable because they're black. We are East Indians. We are superior. We're supreme. PPP, East Indians. That's the PPP for you. And then let's come to the oil. You have PPP East Indian supporters who own all blocks. As a matter of fact, I can tell you now tonight, based on my information, the evidence that we have, which we're going to reveal, most of the oil blocks are gone. China, India, Middle Eastern people, PPP East Indian supporters fronting for PPP ministers. One PPP supporter allegedly owned 3 oil blocks. 3. Fronting for a certain person. One of them belonged to a certain minister of the government, we heard. Sue? Where is Sue? The legal fees? That's not a bribe. It's called a service fee. Check out the oil blocks. Blacks? None. No oil blocks. Blacks do not own, excuse me, any oil blocks. How dare you black people want to get rich? How dare you want to, you don't own oil blocks? That is for us, the plutocrats. PPP plutocrats. You guys are ordinary pickers of our cotton. You work on the plantation. You don't own. You're not supposed to own anything. Have you begun to see this systemic, endemic racism and racial discrimination? What is apartheid? I'm coming to that. And then let's come to Tukumo Ogunse. Tukumo Ogunse is an African Guyanese activist from the WPA, who I think on March 8th addressed a public meeting in Buxton. And during his presentation to the audience, he said words to the effect that when the government ordered the security service, including the GDF, to shoot down protesters who were protesting for their rights and for racial justice, they must turn their guns in the other direction. The government said, oh, that means he's telling the people to shoot at us. We are the other direction. So Barjagbe went on national television and declared he is Lord of all things, Lord of Guyana, that he must be charged. And so they charged him, this black man, with inciting racial hostility. Remember, we just listened to Gaza. Gaza said, shoot and kill the police. He said, kill out all black people. If he got a gun, he's going to shoot you out and poison you and kill you. But he's East Indian. No, he doesn't get arrested. And he doesn't get charged with inciting racial hostility, even though he said kill black police officers and kill black people. But Takuma Ugonse, who said, turn your guns in the opposite direction, the government says that means at them. And them and all of their surrogates and their ethnic media and everybody whip themselves into frenzy to say, he said, overthrow the government by force. How dare you black people speak? Every time you speak, and we don't like it, we are going to frame you with a crime. So you had the descendant of slave owners from Madeira, Kit Nascimento. Kit Nascimento said he must overthrow the government by force. And mind you, all the man said, turn your guns in the opposite direction. And other things, but that's the essence of what he said. After Barry Jagdeo said he should be charged and arrested, the police force arrested him, held him for 3 days, and then produced him shackled like a slave, literally using feet shackles that they used on slaves, and list him in the court documents as a Negro. Talking about plantocracy. They list the man as a Negro on official court documents. And they shackle him. Why? They deliberately did it to humiliate him and to make him feel like a slave. That's why they did it. That is the amount of contempt and disrespect this government, this PPP government, has for black people. They want to humiliate us as slaves. They're the new white people. They're the new white people that enslaved the blacks and brought us from Africa in chains and sold us to work on plantations. That's what they want to return us to. What is that? Are you seeing the endemic systemic racism and discrimination, the segregation, the discrimination? Do we have to have laws to prescribe that that means apartheid? Or are we assessing the practices of this government and juxtaposing them with the apartheid regime in South Africa? Are we doing that? Because I submit to you that if you do that, you will find all the similarities of the apartheid regime. We don't have the laws enacted in Guyana that says black people must not cross the Berbice Bridge, or if that constitutes a crime for which they'll be jailed. Black people must not go on the bus with Indians, PPP Indians, because that constitutes a crime for which they'll be jailed. No, we don't have those laws. But we have systemic, endemic racism, racial discrimination. And the people administering the policies of this PPP government, they enforce those restrictions, the segregationalism, the discrimination through policies and practices. And the effect of that produces apartheid governance. And there's more. This PPP government, as soon as it came to power, it took away the funding, the government subventions from all major black organizations in Guyana. Aparthied, Christian Labor College, and ACTA, the African Cultural Development Organization Association. Took away their funding. In the meantime, they're giving hundreds of millions of dollars to East Indian cultural organizations, like the Indian Arrival Committee, hundreds of millions of dollars. How dare you, black slaves, get subventions from this government? When this government is only for the ethnic supremacists. In the land. How do you explain? You take away all the money from AGDA. You take away all the money from Christian Labor College. You take away all the money from Aparthied. Not only that, but you brand their, in order to justify taking away the money, Barjadeo, the grand wizard of the PPP ethnic government, the ethnocracy, the apartheid autocracy, the grand wizard, he started to attack the leaders of this of Aparthied in particular, of being corrupt. Oh, you black people are just corrupt. We have to stop giving you government money. We want the audit of the money that the government give you all. Because, you know, black people are thieves and criminals. Black people are thieves and criminals. So we want an audit. And that's how we start. And then he cut off the money. Aparthied sued them. The Chief Justice said, here, listen, y'all don't want me to rule on this? Settle it. Enter a period of negotiation, conciliation, whatever you want to call it. Because if I rule on it, it might have some serious consequences. So the Attorney General said, oh yeah, we can give them back the money. We have no legal foot to stand on, so we're going to give them back the money. You know, it hasn't happened yet. You know what? If the conditions I have laid out here don't constitute apartheid practices, what does? These are the exact conditions that led to Sudan splitting into two countries. The marginalization and the subjugation based on ethnicity and religion in this case. Sudan split in two. And I suspect that's what the PPP wants. But we must tell them that we ain't going nowhere. They came and met us there so they could go and pick an island, either the Pacific or wherever, and take their supporters there. That's not my proposition. I'm saying I suspect that that's what they want. They're not going to expel us from our country by implementing apartheid governance, apartheid policies and practices. We ain't going nowhere. That's our country too. We can stand up and defend it and help to develop it and fight for it. And the people of Guyana must defeat PPP racism. We are the victims. I'm speaking generally as African Guyanese, not me in particular. Well, I am the victim of PPP racism. They're coming after me with full force. They want to use all the instruments of the state to come after me. But I'll be here. I'll be here. I know how to fight. When they come after me, we're going to have combat. So I want to tell people like Neville Bisemba and the others, don't tell us how to think. Don't tell us how to interpret or categorize or express what we experience as apartheid governance. Don't tell us that. It is contemptuous, it's offensive. It's like telling a woman how she must feel and express domestic violence or in a situation of domestic violence. Don't do it. Let us express our feelings, our pains, our hurt, our resentment of PPP racism that is endemic in the country, that have passed the threshold of apartheid governance. It's now bordering on fascism. Don't tell us how to think. We will meet that kind of pomposity and arrogance, imperialism with disdain and contempt ourselves. Interlopers can't tell us how to think and how to express our feelings. Interlopers are the ones that came. The Amerindians were there first. The slaves were brought thereafter. It is contemptuous to embark on a campaign to tell Black people how they must feel and how they must think and how they must express ourselves and what we are feeling, and to define for us what our feelings are and how we must say those feelings or express those feelings. Don't tell us that. It is contemptuous. We have been long freed from the plantations of slavery and the grip of the plantocracy and plutocrats and the chains of slave masters. You can't re-enslave us. You would not execute your apartheid agenda peacefully. You can't. We will protest. Even if we have to climb Mount Everest, you would not be able to implement that apartheid agenda with impunity. We will protest. Maybe you shoot us down. Maybe you use violence against us. We don't believe in violence, but in some societies, violence begat violence. We get violence. We are not proponents of violence. As a matter of fact, throughout history, oppressors have used violence against us to subjugate us. That's what's happening in Guyana. Stop lecturing to us. Turn your focus on the PPP. Turn your focus on those incorrigible racists who seek our destruction, our extinction, those who want to run us out of our land, those who want to strip us of citizenship or revert us to second-class citizenship or slaves through apartheid policies. Turn to them. Let them know that what they're doing is racist. Let them know that you will not tolerate racial discrimination. Let them know that we're not talking because we like to talk. We're talking because we're describing our conditions and we're not going to remain in them. Stop telling us to roll over and die and accept apartheid governance. Because really, we define it differently. And under our standards, the discrimination you face and the apartheid policies practiced against you don't reach the threshold of our imagination of what, or imagined rules of what apartheid governance is. It is time the people talking tell the PPP to stop the war on Black people. In the 1960s and 70s, and even now, the cries of the oppressed people is no justice, no peace. There's no society where injustice thrives that is peaceful. No society. You can't have tranquility when you're oppressing people. You can't have normalcy in a society when you're oppressing people. People will defend themselves. People will work to defeat the oppressors. So the PPP must decide what they want. Do they want props and PR stunts? Or do they genuinely want one Guyana? Do they want to involve Blacks in the polity, in the economic development of the country? Or they want to shut us out? Do they want Black people to benefit from the oil wealth, from the natural patrimony, from the resources of the country? Then change course. Change course. Let's have equitable government. Let's have equitable governance. Let Afro-Guyanese citizens benefit equally from government contracts, from contracts in the oil and gas sector. And if you cannot bring yourself to accept that Black people must benefit equally, then you have no right being in government. You have no right being in government. And you should be banished to the dustbins. So I'm speaking, I know I speak on behalf of most African Guyanese. We reject the nonsense about PPP discrimination not reaching the threshold of apartheid governance. When are we supposed to cry out? After they implement the apartheid practices and policies in strict compliance with international definition? When they kill all of us out? When they expel us from the country? When are we supposed to cry out? Are we supposed to wait until it gets to that threshold before we speak out? Are we supposed to roll over and die and say, well, we have to accept this because, we're defeatists, we have to accept PPP East Indian supremacy? When are we supposed to speak up? And how about all these citizens in Guyana who are supposed to be of good conscience, remaining quiet in the face of this assault, this war? It seems as though the acquisition of oil money has sent the PPP crazy. They want all for themselves, all. Black people don't belong to this country. Go back to Africa and leave us to spend our oil money alone. It's like that's what they're saying to us. And we're saying Guyana is our country too. And we want equal rights and equal justice. That's what we're saying. Guyana belongs to all of us, and we must benefit equally. Blacks, East Indians, Amerindians must benefit equally from the national patrimony, from the oil wealth, from the oil revenues, and from the resources of the country. Anything else is unacceptable. And anybody who's arguing against that is deranged and delusional. This is 2023. We're not going to the back of the bus. We're not going to be second-class citizens. We are all equals. There is no plutocracy. There's no plantocracy. We would not allow any ethnocracy. We want inclusive governance. Good night, everybody.